thank you for coming, and also thank you for giving us the excuse to gather in this magnificent place.
So you don't have the look of people who need one, but happy to oblige.
Thank you. I've been over in my mind what would most serve us as a group of men to hear from you tonight. You know what we do. We are attempting to take young men who are in times of crisis in their lives and offer them an initiation, a rites of passage of sorts, to look at enabling them to resolve the wounds of their past to some extent, and be able to create a different story for themselves and a different possibility for the rest of their life. And we are a group of men. We are part of, perhaps loosely, the men's movement. We're a group of men who are hoping to make a difference. And I just wondered whether you could share with us a few of your thoughts around some of those things that we, as a community, might want to bear in mind.
So I was just in Portsmouth. That's where I woke up this morning. We had the gig there last night with the band, and I got there the day before, and I saw the gathering of this alleged security thing. And you may not have caught wind of what was going on there, but I was on the ground right in the on the sea front there. And I can tell you that if you have any intent to rise in open and adamant opposition to the current regime, they are ready for you. That's a very important thing for you to know that. They're way ready for you. And their capacity to mobilize was absolutely breathtaking. They had a curfew on from midnight last night. You were not allowed to walk around in your own damn city. It was amazing. They had people, they warned people off their balconies, telling them that there were snipers all around and so forth. And my point is this: when you are enforcing security, there's no security to enforce. That's what enforcement means. It's like enforcing a kind of moral code or a code of behavior. If you're in the enforcement branch, you're enforcing something that doesn't exist. You're trafficking in an illusion, pretending you're actually protecting something. But there's nothing there to protect. And so when you go through security at the airport, it's much more proper that they should at least be level with you and clearly tell you, by virtue of what they wear on their apparel, it should say insecurity on it. So no one's confused about what the actual arrangement is, right? So you are being subjected to the enforcement branch of the insecurity division of the way it is. That's a proper understanding of what I think. And then you should properly be on edge. And then when they invite you to report any suspicious behavior, that's very interesting, because if you start looking for it, well, you'll be the most suspicious looking person there, acting on their own instructions. And then you're warned that the current security level is orange. Well, anyway, you get the point. If you travel around at all, you're in this kind of low-grade, vaguely manic state called preparedness. So I'd like to read you, this just occurs to me now, because we're relaxed, right? We don't have a formal thing. So then this is a dramatic reading of something that I happen to write. So let's see if I even remember what page it is. Turned right to it. Thank you very much. Now, I often recommend to those people who have, in defiance of good judgment and the mandate of equilibrium, entered into the Orphan Wisdom School, that they obtain for themselves a new lined journal and dedicate it to recording faithfully and as fully as time and devastation allow well-discerned signs of the end times. And I try to follow my own example on this. One recent example might give you a feel for the enterprise. So I'm on, this is true story, by the way, I should say, because it's going to stretch your sense of what's credible. Or maybe it won't, given who you are. I'm on yet another airplane to somewhere else. The middle-aged man beside me is reading what appears to be a kind of primitive skills survive in the wilderness book. I'll stop there and say, primitive skills survive in the wilderness, as if these are the same things, because the book thought they were. So there's something to wonder there, whether these are synonyms or something closer to antonyms. After all, surviving in the wilderness would not be a primitive skill, is my first suggestion to you. And so this book has loads of line-drawn illustrations. And as the flight wears on, and I look over his shoulder, frankly, that's what I was doing this, not very subtly, he goes deeper into the book. And as he does so, there are primitive urban skills galore. In fact, that's the only thing that's illustrated. Primitive urban skills. This is actually a phrase I'm using. It's not what he called it. But as you'll see, there's deep confusion in this book, as there are in most books, it seems. And this confusion is to imagine that a primitive urban skill is something that's consistent with your longing after the wild. And there are primitive urban skills galore, ones that I never imagined. There are elaborate descriptions of how to escape a carjacking, of how to barricade an inward closing door. Whoever thought that that was a particular skill one would need someday. How to respond to a bomb threat, of course. How to elude ransom attacks. And this being U.S. airspace, how to detect an inspired terrorist. That's what they call it, inspired terrorists. I'm not sure there's another kind, but anyway. Amazing, useful stuff, we'll have to admit, when the proverbial fecal matter hits the air conditioning unit. Nowhere, I would guess, is there an account in the book of how to survive an encounter with such a book. Or what it would do to your soul, or to your regard for your fellow humans, and how such a book would prompt you to hoard beans and bullets, as they say in Texas, and how it would predispose you, just reading it, to an assumption of predation, of kill or be killed, of the whole thing in a time of disarray amounting to you and yours versus the madness that's coming over the razor wire. So that's what it sounds like to me when things are generalized. That all mayhem derives from social disorder. All social disorder arises from people who are malcontents and don't know a good deal when they see one, etc. and so on. It seems to me that the differences between us are not problems to solve. The differences, the obvious ones, say, between the genders, between the races, would be the most obvious ones to refer to. But the last time I checked, it would appear that all of these differences are naturally occurring. This is a heavily freighted word, natural, these days. It's not a word I really like to use, because if they're selling you toilet paper using the word natural, you might not want to use it anymore. Just find a different way to refer to what you mean by that. But my point is that the differences between us look like they're supposed to be there. And if they're supposed to be there, either you're a misanthrope and you decide that everything that's supposed to be there is an obstacle to overcome in order to self-realize or self-actualize, or you might be schooled and be willing to be schooled by the natural order of things, which includes all the differences between us. So you might subvert the standard, fairly aggressive prejudices of the times by saying, underneath the samenesses are our differences. And that's the treasure. So that's the first thing I would like to lead with, because it's not in any way becoming for me to come from a foreign country and imagine, reimagine, or otherwise insist upon a kind of one-size-fits-all proposition for anything. But even before you get to solution land, to reimagine that it's only the sameness between us that allows me to sit before you and wonder aloud with you about anything at all is fascism, frankly. This is a strong word, but it's an aspect of globalization, is my point. And globalization mobilized is what I saw this morning in Portsmouth. That's what its unkind face looks like. Its kind face looks like you can get the same running shoes anywhere in the world, as if there's an upside to that.